Often what's considered a bold new idea is actually borrowed from one that's tried and true. It's called building a better mousetrap. That's what happened when a German inventor took a bicycle and added an engine. Now, the quest to build that better mousetrap is one of the driving factors behind many of the innovations we see today.
Did you know that when you woke up this morning, more than 1,000 satellites were in operation above the Earth? Although we may not give much thought to this technology, the commercial satellites in the group bring a range of services, including media content, broadband internet access, and more into our daily lives. But it is not only consumers and businesses that use the services of commercial satellite operators. The U.S. Department of Defense and other government agencies also rely on this private industry for communication services that support critical missions around the world.
I think most people would be surprised to learn that although the government owns a lot of its own satellites, they predominantly depend on commercial communication satellites for most of their traffic. During the past decade or so, probably 80 to 85% of the traffic, communications traffic that went over satellites to support our troops in Southwest Asia and the Middle East actually traveled on commercial satellites, didn't travel on government-owned satellites. This is important because we don't really expect it to change in the future. The people who are designing applications for government use are pretty insensitive to the amount of bandwidth that's going to be required. And today's budget reality probably is going to make it impossible for the government to buy as many satellites as it might need to satisfy all these increasing demands. So we think we're going to be an important part of the communications infrastructure for the Department of Defense for as far as we can see into the future.
We've recently seen significant developments when it comes to the way in which DoD is able to plan and purchase commercial satellite communication solutions, and this is a direct result of congressional engagement and interest in the issue. It's been a matter of interest both for the Department of Defense as well as industry, and in many cases we've come together to make the case for acquisition reform.
SES Government Solutions has also worked alongside Congress to address the issue of overspending. The company assisted Congress in writing legislative language that will improve the government's buying practices for commercial satellite communications. The DoD's use of commercial satellite services to support our troops benefits us as a nation, but it also presents certain challenges. The demand for satellite capacity is increasing over the Asia-Pacific region, for example, while the growing use of unmanned aerial vehicles also requires more satellite bandwidth. To ensure that the demands in these areas can be met, the government must work with companies such as SES Government Solutions, which uses its fleet of over 50 satellites to support government defense, intelligence, and civilian agencies.
You might recall that early in the Iraq-Afghanistan war, there was a serious SATCOM shortfall, and likewise commercial SATCOM shortfall, particularly in Afghanistan, less so in Iraq. And that was ultimately mitigated by moving some satellites and bringing on board some capacity that hadn't previously been there. Closer to home and current times, we're finding that in the Western Pacific, where there's a limited customer base in the midst of that vast ocean area, that there is not a lot of satellites, commercial or military, serving that area, and that's becoming an increasing area of concern for the U.S. government. Opportunities exist for commercial providers to provide all of those things: better service, higher speeds, more affordable, do it worldwide, and importantly, do it with security.
If commercial satellite capacity is essential to military communication systems, as it certainly is, then the government must engage in sound planning and procurement practices. Absent these practices, the risk that satellite communication services will not be available when they are needed may lead to national security issues. The questions being posed by industry experts are, who will the DoD buy commercial satellite services from if the capacity of trusted providers and countries does not meet its needs?
The commercial SATCOM operators stepped up in the early 1990s as a result of Desert Storm and the need for the right information to the right user at the right time. Military satellite communications at the time provided a portion of that capacity that was needed, but not all of it. Commercial satellite operators then were able to augment that capability and have done so ever since. They provide vital information for Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps users, as well as other government agencies. SES is pleased and proud to be one of those supporters of the U.S. government security missions.
To learn more about SES Government Solutions, visit the company's website at www.ses-gs.com or call 703-610-1000.